Okay, we are live, Monday, January 8th. A lot to talk about today. There were some interesting
Yeah,
stories that
Lord, do
happened
we?
over the weekend. And as people show up in here, we'll just give them a minute or two. We were a minute late today, first time in a while. Give us a break, guys. As you're getting in here, we're going to start with our stories, but if you have any comments or questions you want to ask us, feel free. But George, do you want to give us our market update and what we're seeing today after a weekend off in the stock market?
Yeah, well, we've been late less because lately, if I have been late, I've been sending you in alone, Stephen. Your training is going well.
Yep. I've learned the filibustering skill.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like before one of our best attendance days, you were holding it down. Uh, in London.
Yeah.
Um,
You were in London.
but yeah, it's interesting. Like we went pretty neutral on the portfolio because like neutral slightly bullish because that looks like the right call, maybe even a little more bullish because the truth is like when you zoom out right now, we're seeing some really good macro trends. In terms of just like the technicals on stocks and like to be clear, like, and this is the thing where it's like people need like everybody gets eaten up in bear markets because it's very easy to be the person that says the stock market's going to go up. You know, anyone could do that. A broken clock is right twice a day. Is kind of like what I think a lot of people don't realize. And like I saw this happen. I see like, and the annoying thing is I see the same people that were cocky in the bull market, like all of these crypto people that got eaten up, acting like they're geniuses again, despite the fact that they've been wrong for like the last year plus. And to me, that's just like hilarious. Like, cause it's just like, yeah, if you say something's gonna go up, you're gonna be right. Like, I think like historically 60 to 70% of the time. I don't know if that's days or that's just like years. I'd have to look that up, but generally that's what you're going to be looking at. So, like, yeah, you're looking at a very high hit rate if you just say up, but fortunes are made and lost on not just up. And I think the big thing is like we hear all the time like these like on the other side of like the meme stalkers, we hear all these like old graybeards in the market just be like, yeah, I've made 40% over the last like 50 years in my portfolio. And it's like, that's actually terrible. Like, if you just bought the market, you would be doing way better than a 40% increase. So I think that like especially with like compounding and reinvesting. So I think that that's just like where everybody's always good to get perspective, and it's always good to like obviously you look at something like what we're doing and like we're over 50% or close to 50% the last 2 years. So like there are ways in which you can get that kind of performance consistently um if you pick your spots as we advocate for and obviously play to your strengths. But yeah, right now we're seeing a nice recovery in net option sentiment, and we did see that curving back up. I would say even kind of ahead of the market to end last week. Um, and that's in our neutral zone. SPY is still in our bull zone, like it was like completely in our bull zone before. Um, so yeah, I think we're seeing just a very good overall trend in the market. But as we're talking about, and we'll talk about more, there's still some like bearish concerns, especially in specific sectors. So that's something you have to be very mindful of. Um, as well as, one of the things we're going to talk about is getting exposure to certain kinds of brands and brand growth that could be exciting while also still being in sectors like that are preferable. Like one of the things, like a distinction and an important one, is the difference between like consumer discretionary and consumer defensive. And we'll talk about that a little later, maybe even in our next segment. Um, but yeah, I think that like what we're definitely seeing uh, is the market gearing up to have a bull 2024, despite what people talk about, like what people that have been on the street a long time, Wall Street, kind of talk about these like perma bears. And like, yeah, you'll find bears in any market, and there's reasons. I would say more legitimate reasons than a typical like what looks to be gearing up, especially the way this is starting as a bull year. And I'm saying that because we had a bit of a bear week last week, And the market could have doubled down on that and still can, but it's looking like it doesn't want to do that. It's looking like it wants to be in its overall bull trend that it's ended the year on, which makes me more inclined to say this is going to be a bull year with legitimate bear worries is where I am right now.
So in the last 9 weeks of 2023, we had 9 straight up weeks, and with last week snapping that with a down week. Do you think that was just people who wanted to take profits but didn't because of tax reasons, selling last week, which would be a little bit of like, um, it wouldn't be like a bearish turn. It would just be like a market dynamic that is, wrapping up now, and how you're saying you're more bullish. Is that kind of what we saw last week? You think?
Yeah, I think when we've talked about this before. I tend to think people like overrate like tax reasons, but that could be in your right. Like I'm basically saying it might have been for tax reasons, but it's probably not for good, well-reasoned tax reasons that people like do these tax things. I would say almost anyone that's talking about tax reasons in retail investing, I see them almost always basically using misguided opinions, something that looks like they've read on Reddit or they like heard from a friend. Um, so I would caution that personally, but yeah, like it could be kind of like misguided tax reasons. But we talk about this all the time. I think what ends up happening is profit taking, like, and I'd say it's like almost always I look to Wall Street, not retail, because Wall Street makes up the majority of the market. So like I would say I tend to look to Wall Street to say like why is the market moving, what is the Wall Street reason, and I think retail tends to look at the retail reason, and I think that that's kind of misguided but also just like completely understandable, not trying to take you to task too much, Stephen. But I would say it's almost always the Wall Street reason that that it's moving, and I think the Wall Street reason is just like profit taking, and we talk about that. Like we're in this like huge bull trend, and then everybody starts looking over their shoulders, being like, "All right, when is everybody going to take profits? Okay, this week let's take profits. Let's reevaluate when like the bull run is going to like resume." And that just like absolutely looks like what's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised to see some bear tests this week. But I think that's the nice thing about always like keeping track of like QQQ, SPY, net option sentiment. Um, because I think that yeah, basically what we're talking about there is a lot of the times I'd say, especially QQQ right now, an opportunity to get ahead of the market when you see those things dip. And we definitely see the curve at the end, the curve up last week precede an upturn. So like I always emphasize that it's just like when you see like something like QQQ net option sentiment, which is like tracking well as a leading indicator in the last few weeks, I like to run with that until future notice. And QQQ looks like a good leading indicator right now, which is why I'm probably more bullish. And at the end of this, we're going to start to do, like, I think in all the live streams where I have time for, start to do a QQQ, or sorry, a model portfolio update. So we're going to do that at the again. And I expect to add more bull picks based on exactly what I'm saying here for that.
So I wanted to bring up one stock that took a bearish turn today. Your camera went out, George. I don't know if you know that. Um, did we lose you, George? There you are.
No, it was on purpose.
Okay. Um, so over the weekend, there was a viral video going around of an Alaska Airlines flight that mid-flight, a piece literally fell off the plane about, the size of a door. It was like a full panel, and they had to do an emergency landing because, the plane was not functioning properly. And thankfully, nobody was sitting near that part of the plane, so nobody was hurt. But it turns out that that was a Boeing plane, and now FAA has grounded 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes. Boeing stock was down today. They've had a lot of troubles, it seems like, over the past couple of years with their manufacturing. What do you think of Boeing after? Did you see this video, and what do you think of Boeing stock?
Well, it's one of those things where it's just like where we're always just like a common theme is like how much do the markets know? How much do the Prospero signals know? Because those that aren't as familiar with our signals, a lot of like our powerful ones that help us, beat the market are derived from options bets and kind of the price trending in institutional options bets. So we dropped Boeing last week in our model portfolio, and there was no real. I believe I can look up the position. Um, there was no real reason other than softening in the signals. Um, yeah, we dropped it on 12/28, and we saw some softening. So like with how quick this like recall happened, like the conspiracy theorist in me says like how big were these whispers that there might be plane problems? Because like the story in capitalism is as old as time that companies are always more interested in just like, oh, let's cover up and run with this as long as we possibly can, versus like, let's do the preemptive recall when I hear there might be problems. Like, that story is as old as time. And like, I don't know if I've talked about this on a live stream, but one of my favorite like stories in terms of like how dark capitalism gets. Thing A is whenever someone tells me like, oh, like the government or like the FDA or like whatever says it's okay. And it's just like there was basically this big conspiracy. Like I remember growing up when all this like candy was like fat free and there was this war on fat. And now we find out like later that there's like, a lot of studies where it's actually just like sugar is the damaging thing. And these things were just like chock full of sugar while advertising they were fat free. And we also learned that there's like a lot of more beneficial fats. Um, so it's like just like basically like the science community just like feeding us bad information because like the sugar lobby wanted them to. But like the more extreme like thing that I always hear about, where I'm just like, oh, like we literally like not only does the government like hide some like you could say like more minor, but like you'd argue like with the diabetes and the obesity problem stuff that like contributes to like bad health, like has a like not only like a human cost to it, but like a medical cost, especially with how bad our medical system is when you combine those two variables. Um, but there was a story like that I'm just like, oh my God, like these seals, a bunch of these seals, or I think it was sea lions, like were turning up with cancer in the Bay Area. And basically, like that caused a study of like why, like a lot of them, maybe like 60% had cancer. And a lot of them, and basically, like that caused like the marine biology community to start investigating. And what they found out was like, I believe it was like Orange County or LA was allowing like I believe in the 20s or 30s, just like I believe it was like DEET or DDT or like one of those like horrible chemicals. Basically, like some company paid like a local, and there was like marine biologists that discovered this and discovered the actual evidence of the barrels that this happened, and then basically the government was like, oh yeah, we admit this happened. They basically sunk like I think it was like 60,000 barrels of this horrible chemical to the bottom of the ocean. And like the I believe it was some municipality in LA got like some minor like payoff from the company. And there used to be like there's probably like the most offensive slogan I ever heard attached to that for whatever these companies were. That it said dilution solves pollution. And we're basically talking about like 60,000 barrels of this, just like everybody agrees, toxic chemical. And like, yeah, basically, like this company and like this government were like sold on this, like this government entity were sold on this, like, this idea that you could just like throw whatever to the bottom of the ocean and it would be fine. And that's like one of the worst stories I've ever heard about like capitalism, and you might even say states' rights, which, by the way, I'm in favor of. But I'm just like, how does the federal government not like, and the FDA or whoever, or like maybe the EPA? I don't even know. Yeah, I think the EPA was around. I think Teddy Roosevelt might have established it. But anyway, like, how are they not involved in that decision? And that just goes to show you how like deep any of this stuff can ever get, where you're just like, oh, like whether and then like to tie it back to the Boeing story, like I wouldn't be surprised if the reason people were betting on that is this was common enough knowledge. Like it was floated around to some lawyers and some law firms who basically knew there was this problem and it could go wrong, probably for a while. And then maybe there was talk of like, I mean, I don't like, you don't know, or maybe it's not a while, but maybe it started to like become a problem, and it's just like, and to me, I'm an Occam's razor person, and for those that are not familiar with the term, it's the simplest answer. That's you know the truth. And to me, it's just like when I'm just like, okay, like I just looked it up. I had been up 14% in a few months on my Boeing position. There was no real reason for me to get out of it. It had been one of my most successful positions, and the Prospero signals just started moving in the other direction in that. So like when you Occam's razor that problem, I'm just like, okay, like why this sudden change? All of a sudden this problem happened. The stock's down close to 10% today. Like I don't know how the conclusion couldn't be that some people had wind of this.
Yeah, and it's another powerful story of the Prospero signals, which we're about to bring up some more stocks that the Prospero signals have liked. But before we get into those two, I wanted to bring up this stock that has been up 270% in the past year. That I think I could give all the people in our chat right now as many guesses as they want, and I doubt they could pick which company this is. It was shocking to me when I saw this morning. And
I'm gonna
you've been
give you the hint.
highlighting,
It's a consumer discretionary
yeah,
brand. And one more hint before anyone can guess. We got some people in the audience. One more hint. It was a popular brand when I was a teen. So in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
that's the exact
Um,
hint I was going to give. It peaked in the 90s, is what I was going to say. So I
Yeah.
don't know how they're.
I remember even thinking maybe I should buy some of this brand in high school. So maybe I was just like, yeah. Well, it's actually kind of funny. Some people people who probably tune into this a lot might have noticed my fashion. And like I kind of like up until I was in high school, I wore like hand-me-downs. I didn't care at all. I was very much like a whatever, like comfort kind of thing, which I still am. I'm like, kind of particular about how comfortable my clothes are, the reason I wear a decent amount of like silk. This is like a very light fabric too, actually. Uh, but I actually got paid to be part of like a focus group in in high school, and where I got paid to like buy some clothes. Haley got it. Yeah. Good job, Haley. Haley didn't know the answer. She's not cheating. Um, Abercrombie and Fitch is right, and we were about to give it away. But like, yes, I almost bought stuff there, but I ended up buying some other brands, and they like I got like interviewed about it, and it's like actually it's like one of those things where it started to make me, when I got interviewed about the clothes I bought and why, it started to make me think about like fashion more and what I cared about it, and it actually made me realize that I cared about it and that I didn't just want to wear hand me downs anymore. Uh, but yeah, to talk about it, it's like it's pretty crazy. Steven, you want to pull up Abercrombie and Fitch signals and give me like a little review of what you're seeing?
Yeah,
Um, so I'm training Steven to do this better. But yeah, basically, like we do see a good upside to downside breakout ratio. We are seeing a bit of a lowered trend in net option sentiment. I would be interested to hear if that continued. It was like at 55 at open today. Um, so I think that, or it was at 55 at close. I'm interested to see how that's developing, Stephen. But yeah, I think that like when we see these brands, it's tough because I generally like it up, like it's a 67 upside breakout, 44 downside breakout. Um, it's one of those things that could really go either way at that level. And if it had a high net option sentiment, I would be much more inclined to believe in it. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's just like I think people tend to really like and I think one of the things that we're going to get to as we like move through this segment, people really like brands with name recognition, and especially when they start to run. I think it's one of these things that like one of the things that we say about retail investors, and by the way, like getting over this problem, I think is the best way um to improve as a retail investor, which is uh getting over the fact that that the market is going to make you feel stupid often, and the market still makes me feel stupid pretty often. And like a lot of people, when it makes them feel stupid, they just, anything makes them feel stupid, they just want to like pull away from it. And like the reason I think these stocks run, especially in retail circles, is people see Abercrombie and Fitch going up and be like, oh, I know Abercrombie and Fitch, and it actually creates a cycle where it creates, the stock creates more brand awareness, which creates more sales, which creates the stock going up more. And I think that that's like one of the things where you definitely see, and like we've talked about like the death spiral in reverse, where like where the stock starts to go down, it creates kind of like the opposite of that brand awareness, or maybe a competitor comes along that creates the opposite. People start buying that. They think it's like less of a hot brand. Like it can go the opposite direction where people start to see a stock going up and sales increasing and just being like, oh, this must be a cool brand again. And it creates like this upward cycle of sales and stocks. And then obviously a stock goes up, and then Abercrombie and Fitch has more money to market. If like they can attack different like brand ambassadors because all of a sudden it starts to be cool again and other people start wanting to be associated with it more, like we were talking about with Stanley the other day. So, especially these retail brands, there's something very real to this like stock brand awareness upcycle and down cycle. But like the danger of that, and what we always say with like any like meme, any kind of like upcycle kind of thing, like the problem with that is the same problem with a meme stock, where it's just like you get in because of this like retail awareness, but like when these things end, retail is terrible at understanding like what I would say like the game of musical chairs, which is just like when the music is going to stop. Wall Street basically decides when the music stops, and by the time they've decided the music stopped, you probably can't get out of that stock for like less than a 10 to 20% hit. Like if you press like sell immediately, you still might just be behind the orders, especially if your broker is like Robinhood. So the question is, when did you get in? And the thing is, you might have gotten in like when there's like another 10% to go on the stock, but like you might lose that 10% the minute the music stops and the game of musical chairs starts. So I think that's all to say, like, you are also playing a dangerous game when you buy a stock like Abercrombie and Fitch right now, because a stock that's up close to 300%, yeah, it could easily have another 20% movement, but you could lose that and more pretty instantaneously as a retail investor, which is why like I do think like where people are misguided sometimes is um I do think people uh I do think people like that look for stocks at like avoid stocks that are near or above their 52-week high and look for stocks that are near or below their 52-week low. That is more of a good strategy than a bad. Like I would definitely rather own a stock at a 52-week low than a 52-week high, all things equal. Again, I think that's what I really like about the Prospero signals, and the people that do well with them always tell us this, where it's just like technicals do not do very well at telling you if like a stock at a 52-week high can keep going. Whereas since like Prospero has live options information, Prospero is excellent for that to tell you if like a stock at a 52-week high still has more juice. But the problem is like I think a lot of especially retail investors like go horribly wrong with this idea of like, oh, a stock at a 52-week high, like, yeah, it's more good than bad. That must mean I should buy it, which is like you can get these kind of catastrophes. And we're actually seeing this with like the band of AMC, like, I'm sorry, morons that are like starting, like continuing to be like, and I have this group where I have them, and like, sorry, like, it's just like horrible logic, which is what they're saying, where it's like, it's at an all time low. The stock is trading at like 55 cents at its pre split value. And a lot of people are just like, oh, that means it's about to go up. That means it's a value. Like, look, its market cap is like very low compared to like its all time. It's just like, yeah, that's for a fucking reason. Like, sorry, morons. Like, that's because like it's diluting at its all time low, which basically means the CEO expects it to go lower. Because if he didn't expect it to go lower, he would wait for the stock to bounce back before he diluted. So it's just like people have all these signals and they're just like still being like, oh yeah, it has fundamental value now. It's like, no, it doesn't. Go in Prospero, a stock that has I believe 29 growth and 18 profitability. That is literally the opposite of having fundamental value. Literally the opposite. So like, sorry, like I like try to be soft with these people, but also like I can only be so soft when like this band of morons is still pitching a stock where they want to lose themselves and like whatever, like you like morons can lose other like their own money, like whatever. Like it bothers me that there's people still like pitching their friends on this stock, like saying the stock has fundamental value. And it's basically like you're actually going out there, like you're being a hedge fund. You're basically trying to like put other people's money on the line because you made a bad investment or you're trying to push your investment. And that to me is inexcusable. And you get called a moron because you're a bad person and like you're losing other people money because like you're refusing to see that you've been like gotten into like an investment cult. And like I just have lost all my patience for those people because there's literally no story that this company, like there's no good investment story about this company. And like people are still trying to like get other people to join, like, sorry, their cult, not an investment. So like, yes, it's time to like, if you're still trying to get people into this cult, like lose your own money, but stop trying to lose other people's money because like you refuse to understand that you're in a cult.
Well, thank God for us because, if you're in AMC right now, we're about to give you 2 stocks that you might wanna think about. You don't have to make your money back in the same stock. So even though we've seen bad, consumer discretionary signals and you've been wary about the space for a while with the American consumer taking on credit, Elf, which is a beauty company, but then also SMCI, which is a tech company, have shown amazingly strong signals in Prospero. We've been talking about them for a while, but I believe we just wanted to highlight them again because, even after all this time, they're still showing strong signals for the foreseeable future.
I think like first of all, like this is a good short, and like we should put this up on like maybe make like 10 commandments of investing. We have 9 lessons. Like Stephen just said, like I think what should be the 10 commandments. You don't have to make your money back on the same stock. You should actually repeat that because I would go further. It's much more likely that if you have lost money on a stock, you will make more on another stock than holding that stock. Like, and again, this is where people go wrong for tax purposes. They're just like, oh, like I've lost too much. Like I want to make it back, like for tax reasons or like something like that. When actually, for tax reasons, taking that loss and then putting it into an actual stock that works is the best plan because you carry forward those losses. And like, let's say you lost a bunch of money on AMC and you make it back on ELF, you actually get tax benefits if you like carry forward tax benefits from your loss on AMC. So, yes, like that is a really key thing. And the other part is that is like investments are time value. That's a key thing. Like ROI, IRR, basically it's all time value. And basically, like what that means, just so you know, is like a 5% gain over 7 days is way more valuable than a 5% gain over a month. And that might not make sense for a lot of people, but like it's just like this. Like, let's say you could make 5% every 7 days. That is a lot of money by the end of the year. A lot more, basically like 4 times the money. Um, than the other way around. So I think that is a very, very important concept right there. And I will also say that the other part, like that we're talking about, like, yes, I think ELF and SMCI, like, we actually, it's really funny. I was beating myself up on the live stream about SMCI. We actually sold out of our last position, I think, on Thursday of last week, but then got back in on Friday and it's already up almost 10%. And then ELF, we've taken for 2 big rides this year. This one in the model portfolio up almost 30%. And like, I think those are important. And like, ELF, especially, we'll talk about SMCI because we want to drill this in. Like, if you don't own SMCI, buy SMCI, hold it for the next 5 years, and thank us later. Like, that's it. And just so you know, that's because they still have a 2026 PE of under one, which is just like absolutely insane. I think it's like 0.24, something like that. Something like absolutely like just buy SMCI. Like it's in AI, like it makes specialized servers, like just buy. Like if you don't own it, just buy it. Thank us later. Um, Elf, but like Elf is a really good thing because I want to talk about the difference between consumer like brands and then consumer discretionary and consumer defensive. Consumer discretionary and consumer defensive, they're just like both consumer products. But defensive basically means that like in all economies, people buy these products, and discretionary means people use their discretion in harder economies and don't buy that. So like we dropped booking.com, for example, even though we generally liked it and we could have carried it forward to a profit this year, we dropped it because there was a bad trend in consumer discretionary, right? And it's easy to just be like, yeah, if there's a consumer credit crunch, if people can spend less, like vacations are an easy thing to cut and bookings revenue is hurt as a result, right? That's an easy trend. Elf beauty products, like I actually learned as I was covering Elf, I was like, what? I didn't know beauty products were consumer defensive, but that makes sense. I'm sure if you're a woman, if anyone like knows a woman well, like you're not coming for the beauty products like spending. Like I think Haley, if she's like still watching, would sooner like eat less than like give up the beauty products. Like so like yeah, that's why like something like food, it tends to be consumer discretionary, but beauty products are consumer defensive. So there you go. I make fun of myself. I'm actually pretty into skincare myself. So yeah, but like I would probably eat like a good meal before giving up my skincare. So I'm probably not that consumer defensive like thing that we're mocking. Um, but that is to say, like, Elf is a really up and coming brand that, like, you can get that same, like, quote unquote brand recognition as you would of like a booking.com, which is less of an up and comer. Um, but like, I think that that's a really important distinction where it's like, yeah, there are ways in the consumer offensive sector to get like exposure to like a hot brand um, without having to have the risk of like that discretionary spending phasing out that brand. So I think that that's a really important point, and like those are both great. Like especially if you're overexposed to tech, especially if you're overexposed to uh consumer brands, like those are great like things to say like, oh, I'd rather own SMCI than Nvidia. Like 10 out of 10 times over the next 3 years because we've talked about like Nvidia is a great company, but it's like there's more like sensitivity to like its actual like absolutely incredible growth story. And like obviously its 2026 PE, I believe, is closer to 25. So I think we talked about this. Like SMCI is like close to like a 100x better value than uh than Nvidia, like on 2026 earnings, which is just why I'm just like buy NSNCI and thank us later. Um, but like, because that's where it's just like, yeah, even like SMCI, I believe next year is like I think closer to like a 25 PE, but like a forward PE. But like, yeah, everyone knows that their business is gonna grow, and it's like one of those things where it's just like, yeah, they like there's plenty of market share to go around for that business, but like Elf, there's a little more risk to. But we like Elf because I'm just like sell your consumer discretionary brands and buy some Elf and also thank us later because that's a way to get this brand exposure without the same like discretionary spending risk that we might see towards the later half of 2024.
So it was announced this morning that Odyssey, which is the largest US radio company, was declaring for bankruptcy. And we know, social media and streaming have taken over a lot of the ad markets. But I wanted to get your take on, is this, they went bankrupt basically because they're not getting enough ad money. Is this a problem that we could see, like, with like Facebook and Google and all these other ad dependent companies? Or is this a story of how radio is dying and it's not so broad in the ad market?
Yeah, I think both of the things you said are correct. I think radio is like kind of dying off. Um, and it's just like, yeah, the internet exists. Like, why would you like, and especially like, I think Spotify's product is just like absolutely fantastic. So it's like, why would you listen to radio when you can have a custom station tailored to your uh things, and you can also like download that music so you can like listen to it whenever and you don't require like an internet connection or a radio connection. It's just like there's so many things other than just like, yeah, duh, the internet, like specific things that like make you wonder why, like, I mean, unless you just like the radio, and I'll still listen to like satellite radio in the car. um but that's about it. But like the other thing other than everything that we just said is like how targeted ads can be for a company because like Google and Meta or like whatever, because of these like AI engines that they've built. Like as an advertiser, like why would you pay even close to a comparable amount to like radio that's just like going out to whoever? Um, versus like an ultra targeted AI, just like pushing out your exact message. And like the interesting thing about Google, and like we're thinking about doing Google ads this year, like the interesting thing about Google is that we are like we're thinking about running Google ads this year. And Google's basically being like, yeah, we'll help you with your like SEM, which is search engine marketing, and then like SEO a little bit, like our website, which is just like they're not supposed to help out with, but like they can informally advise. Like, and like they want us to put us through the same like program that Robinhood went through. So like that's very interesting and attractive. We don't know if we even want to run ads, but we probably will run some just like to work with Google, take it for a test run. Um, but yeah, basically, like we will definitely do that part. Um, but uh that part is just like way too, and that's the point. Like, we don't even know if we want to run ads generally, but it's way too tempting to just be like, this company will help us, like, not only target, but optimize the language by which we target in an AI feedback loop. Like, so that's what you're getting when you're working through these companies as well. It's not just the right, like, targeted market person, what have you. You're also like entering a process where your ads through their intelligence are getting better and better at like reaching their audience with the verbiage that gets used. Um, so I think that part is like very, that part is very important. And like, yeah, to your point, like it's just like an overall trend of like, I think anything that's not at least enhancing their process to target better. And I don't think radio did a very good job at this at all. Slash, I don't know how well of a job they could have even done. But it's just like you're fighting an uphill losing battle competing against these like increasingly intelligent companies, especially like when Google and Meta and all these companies are going to start being able to like be like, we can reach like right now there's like an iterative process where like we would write our ads and they would improve about them. Like we're not far away from being like, just plug into our system, we'll write and deliver the ads for you. Like, and it's just like, okay, like why would I waste any money on any like on something that wasn't that?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I don't honestly see where radio goes from here. It kind of seems like it's going to dwindle away. I mean, I guess there'll always be a small audience, but seems like Google and the other ones are the place to be.
There's a very interesting story there of like the shelf life of technology, right? Because, like, even if you're talking about like search as Google, and like we talk about the Google search monopoly all the time as like one of the best things that's ever been made and allowed to be a monopoly, just because like that product was like so far and away above other search engines, it just like killed it. But like, even if you look at where search started versus like now this combination of like running ads and search, where it's like a lot of the times, like, you have to go pretty far down like the SEM, the marketing, before you get to like organic search, right? So even search engines have changed for monetization, right? And like there's a very interesting like story about like, and we talk about this all the time, the balance between like modernizing and staying the same, right? Because it's just like, and I think the most interesting story there is when you start talking about like some of the products of like Sony and like that stupid like mini disc thing, and like that's I think the best case study where like they had the Walkman, they even had like iPod like started to come out, and they were still making like these like mini disc players, and they could have easily just started to make like copy the iPod, but they were like idiots that thought they're like mini disc technology. We're just like, well, you can have all the mini discs you want, like in unlimited space. And they just were like, they didn't understand Moore's law. They didn't understand that, like, yeah, maybe that was the version one of the iPod, and you could have like 200 songs on there, but like that tech was going to get better. and like eventually like nobody wanted to carry around like 100 mini discs versus like one iPod. And yeah, maybe originally it was like, one iPod to like 10 mini discs. And you're like, yeah, maybe you would prefer 20 mini discs with the right mixes on it to it. But eventually, like Moore's law, like says that like that is going to be like, that's going to be crushed. And like they didn't understand that. But it's just like, yeah, you could say the same with radio. Like radio could have been like a lot more intelligent about like how they monetized, they could have gotten to the app game early. They could have gotten in Spotify's business. They had the relationships with the record companies and things like that. And they could have found a very good business model in understanding their listeners, curating playlists and monetizing more for the record companies, something in between the Spotify model and now. And they just didn't do it. They stayed attached to this like very stupid old model, as did the record companies. And now Spotify just like crushes both of them as those models like cling to the past, you know? And that's an interesting thing about this whole like AI like revenue, and everybody's like artists don't get paid any money anymore. And it's just like, yeah, cuz like artists, record companies, all of them like participated in clinging to this old model, you know? Meanwhile, an artist like Radiohead, like that switched to like a donation model and on their albums, I don't really hear them complaining much about how much they made on their albums. Like their loyal fans paid them for those albums. They switched up their model. Like that just tells you like I have sympathy and empathy for artists that are just like not very good at business. I don't mean to make fun of them too much because like I think like to be a good creative and an artist, like I've actually worked very hard on cultivating my creative side as well as my like, business side. So that's where I'm just like, I don't really have like tons of sympathy for these people that are just like, I'm just a creative. I don't do business, when you just don't even learn about it. Like, I don't have time. I have some sympathy, but like not too much. Um, but it's just like, yeah, like these artists like didn't stand up to the record companies either. And they had plenty of power and they were just like they were very content to like just let their business get like completely taken over by Spotify. And I do think like where it is sucks. Like they don't get paid enough. There's not enough incentive, like, and not enough power for artists to like stay artists and be unique. And that's one of my main issues with it. But it's also just like this was like one of my problems with like the actor strike and everything, where it's just like, well, like the record, like the studios are like robbing us and like people can't make a living wage. And it's just like, well, yeah, part of that is the fault of the studios, but part of that is the fault of like Leonardo DiCaprio, who's always this like oh, like we should have a more balanced world and like everything like that, as he probably makes like $50 million a movie, you know and it's just like there's some room to distribute that too, Leo. And like I don't think Leonardo DiCaprio is the problem, like to be very clear. I think it is like the producers that are the problem, but I don't see like Leonardo DiCaprio and Fran Drescher and like all of those people just like standing up to the production houses and being like, actually, like we are holding out like until like everyone gets a better deal. And like the bottom line is they could give up a small like Leonardo DiCaprio could give up like, $5 million, $10 million a movie and have everybody on his movies like get paid more of a living wage, right? So like he does have the power to do that too, right? And that's the thing that I just don't see enough of in this like victim society that we live in. We're like, oh, even Leonardo DiCaprio is the victim of these like, selfish production houses. Where it's just like, yeah, I feel like there's plenty of blame to go around. Is like what I always feel about this. And it's just like the villainization of anyone that isn't you, like, is like I'm sure people that watch this is something that like notice that I don't do. Like I point a lot of fingers, but I point a lot of fingers as I work on a macro solution for finance. Like I'm not just saying this is a problem, I'm also working very hard on a solution. And I think there's not enough people. I think there's too much problem finger pointing going around almost always, and not enough people that are actually working on solutions.
Yeah, and the story of Spotify and what we're seeing in Netflix, it's a common theme in business where the one time, disruptors become disrupted and new companies come up. And we've talked about Apple before about how they need to have a new product, otherwise they might be in that same predicament. And they just announced this morning how, they had announced the Apple Vision Pro, but they set dates on it. It's going to be released February 2nd. Pre-orders are starting January 19th, and this comes just in time because Jeffries just reported today that Apple's iPhone sales for the first week of 2024 are down 30% compared to last year. So, two competing stories of the Apple thing seems pretty timed well by Apple to announce this today. So, what do you make of this story?
I mean, we've talked about like them needing something like the Vision Pro for a long time, and like I like or something like to actually like a new product that actually takes off. Um, like yeah, their sales are down. Like China is a big concern for them, especially with like what I would call like the chip Cold War, like the chip AI Cold War that has started. You know, like China is more organized than the US. So like yeah, like there's nothing better you can do to hurt the US economy than take down like our juggernauts. Because like our juggernauts, like it's not just Apple. It's like all of a sudden you take down Apple sales and like the QQQ, the SPY aren't performing as well. They're not drawing as much dollars into our country. They understand how to fight these economic wars better than we do. Like, and that's why they've been overall beating us in the larger economic war for like a long time. So like, yeah, like I completely think that Apple and China is a big problem. And like if this war escalates, like for those that don't know, there's this big company, Foxconn, in China that is like Apple's manufacturer. And like Apple in like the ongoing chip AI wars, like is at a big risk. Like as is like tech in general, but like Apple, because of that important Foxconn relationship, like talk about a way to just like tank the US stock market if Apple ever wanted to, like if China really wanted to throw a wrench in the relationship. Like they could just like tell Foxconn they weren't making any Apple products anymore. And that would bring Apple to its knees. Like we're probably talking about like a 50%, like 50% hit to Apple stock in a day, and a and also like based on like the percentages, I'm just doing like some back of the envelope math. Like that might be like a 15% hit to the QQQ and an 8% hit to the SPY that same day as well. Like, and the reason China wouldn't do that, like I actually think the US is more likely to pull some like large scale bullshit that actually like causes China to counter like that than China to pull like that kind of move on their own. But like that's one of many, like the basic reason I don't really like Apple stock, and that's my least favorite of the Magnificent Seven. And sometimes I'm even just like, I wouldn't even buy the Magnificent Seven. Maybe I would buy the Magnificent Six and leave Apple out. It's just because, like, yeah, Apple is the only company in the Magnificent Seven whose core business is shrinking. Um, and then it does have these like macro risks as well. And it's just like, I have like kind of a funny Apple product story, which is just like at various times I've been resistant to Apple products because I'm just like, I'm not a contrarian as much as some other people, but like I am a bit of a contrarian in the sense that, like, yeah, I do like sometimes just like not want a product if everybody else has it. But I just bought these like Sony uh like AirPods, because I strangely lost AirPods, my last AirPods in an Uber, like in the actual Uber, and like it like fell between the seat. I pulled up the seat. I have no idea that was like the best disappearing act that I've ever seen for an AirPod because like I saw when I dropped it and where I dropped it and I still couldn't find it. And I have these stupid Sony earbuds that I just like hate. They make these weird noises that I don't understand and they have like I think it's because they have this like automatic sensing technology of like when you go in the subway or the walk, but like that is to say like we rag on Apple products a lot, but I'm about to return these Sony AirPods and just be like, why would I ever get like the Sony product? Like Apple has solved a lot of that stuff. Um, in terms of just like making it very easy and not having like weird experiences where I'm just like, what the hell is Sony doing here? Like, why is it making this noise? Like, and like the other thing is like my hearing, like, you know, I'm a very loud person. My hearing is going a little bit, I think. And like they're like adaptive sound at max volume. I couldn't really even hear my audiobook the way that I wanted to hear my audiobook. And I'm just like, oh, thanks, adaptive sound. Like, I can't even hear what I want to hear now. Like, you've adaptive sounded me like right out of a reasonable listening volume for myself. Um, and so it's just like, I'm just like, wow, this is a terrible product. I'm about to return it. Um, but that is like to give a little like we rag on Apple a lot, but they do still do things in terms of just like product quality, like intuitiveness that like I think especially if you have an iPhone, which I do, um, it just makes a lot of sense. Like to have like the Apple product because of like how it unifies, how well it connects. Like I think like Apple products can feel the same ways to Android users that Sony product me like feels to me, which is just like why is it doing this? Like I don't understand why it's doing this. I don't like why it's doing this. Um, but like, yeah, I would say that like as much as we rag on Apple products, I do still think that there's just like quality integration stuff that that they just make too much sense.
Yeah, I was someone who didn't have Apple for a little bit, and then I got an iPhone, and then it's like it's easier to get a Mac, so I get a Mac. Now I have AirPods, and it's like once you're in their ecosystem, there's no escaping. It's like they have you for life. I wanted to bring up this AI story because, the importance of the market, and we're seeing more and more people coming out in lawsuits against Microsoft and OpenAI over copyright infringement of how they've trained their models. And there's examples of like ChatGPT answering with like direct quotes from people who have published works. Um, do you think this is a big concern? Do you think the AI industry has to change the way they like I don't know, scan the internet? What do you make of all these lawsuits that are happening now?
Will say that like one thing that I really appreciate about comedians, and I consider myself a bit of a funny person. I actually met there was a night out in New York once where I met like some SNL writers and like I was just on one. I was being really funny and uh I asked them if I was as funny as like the SNL actors. And they told me like they were just like, yeah, maybe not as funny, but like you're just as quick. And like that's one of the things that make them funny, like because they're just like on these jokes like right away. Um, but like one of the things I do like, and by the way, I think there's a really, I think we've talked about it, like a Ricky Gervais special that I love that's out new. That's like Armageddon that I've watched a few times already. Um, but like that is all to say, like I find comedians to be on the whole like really really smart, and sometimes like very interesting politically. Like it's a real shame. Like Russell Brand was like before he just like found out that he was like a garbage human being. Um, he was like one of my targets for like a brand ambassador for uh for Prospera. Uh because he just like says a lot of things about the socioeconomic situation that are very, very smart, and I don't hear as a lot out of a lot of other people. Um, so I think that that's a very interesting. But anyway, like what I was gonna say is like Sarah Silverman actually has really interesting stuff to say, and she like leads on these like AI issues about like how she's seen like derivatives of her jokes and things like, and she's like one of the people in these lawsuits. Um, but she has some very interesting things to say about it, and she's always like, obviously, she dated did for a while. I don't really know, but she's a very smart person. Um, and like I think was one of these early lawsuits, but it's a very interesting problem. And like for those, like I still need to, I still need to like ping. Like I gave this, like I had this generative AI talk with like an ex CTO of the US. You watched that, right, Steven? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
like Michael Kratsios, and like I gave him a pretty hard time on like the US's policy on innovation, which was just basically like we need to let AI develop so we're a leader, like pretty much like, and we're not worried about the downsides of that. And just like, okay, that's pretty much like how every disaster story had, and like I brought up Chernobyl in the talk, and I was like, that's how like the US and Russia treated like nuclear development until one of them lost. And I was like, by the way, us versus China and AI, like we're the Russia in this situation. Like we're the one that's behind that might do something very stupid to catch up. Um, but I think like that's just like, and I say that because like there's two sides to it. I just see like the Sarah Silvermans of the world and like these copyright people of the world, like they have really good points. But I think like in terms of like legit copyright infringement, but I think the US government's policy on AI seems to be like so friendly to AI development. I doubt any of these lawsuits go anywhere. And like I think that like the undertones of like what I've heard about like the government and AI and everything is basically like tech companies for a while have had the US government like by the cojones. Like where it's just like there's a reason that Google has allowed to exist as a monopoly. Google has a lot of government contracts, like a lot of the self driving car technology was passed off to the US government for their drone program. Like, so, like, these tech companies that arguably have like as good or better than the US government technology in some areas, like, they have a lot of leverage over the US government, and leverage over the US government tends to get you friendly laws. That tends to just be how it goes. So like that is all to say like there are legitimate gripes that a lot of these like copyright lawsuits have, but I doubt they lead anywhere. And like that's a whole other conversation about how much I just hate that the judiciary system has been compromised. Like, and it's just like say what you want about like, and I try to stay very like unparty aligned, but like I would notice on both sides, the appointments increasingly seem more and more politically aligned, and the judges seem more and more politically aligned than they used to be. Where I think both parties tended to put more like centrist people up, like especially more historically. That it's just like this is the like this is the bench, this is a lifetime appointment. Like, we don't necessarily want people on the bench that like are just going to vote along party lines. We want like independent thinkers. And it's just like even like all of like the Clarence Thomas like taking all of these like corruption things like whatever like that's like the most extreme example, and I think it's the most extreme example because of who he's married to and actually like the way it's defended. Like to me, like corruption existing or like signs of it existing isn't the problem. It's when the basic defense are like is like I don't see what the problem is here. It's like, "Oh, you don't see what the problem of like taking like kickbacks from mega donors are, Clarence Thomas?" Like as like a defender of like the highest court lifetime abhorrence, you don't see what the problem is. Like that's my issue with it. Like not that there's all these like fuzzy capitalism things, and like I would even say like I'm not even someone that says like okay, like Clarence Thomas getting invited on a yacht or like getting a house from like his friend. Like, I'm not even going to say there's an easy way to fix that. But like, my basic problem is him being like, what's the problem here? Like, you could at least acknowledge the problem and say that there's not a good solution versus like this, like, what's the problem attitude that makes me be like, don't play dumb. You are a very smart man, don't give me this what's the problem bullshit. Like, because like you know damn well what the problem is. Like, if you were a real, like, accountable person, which as a fucking judge, like, I would think you should understand, like, then you can be a person that's like, yeah, I could understand how this would make people uneasy, but I don't see a solution. That's like a real person like thing. And like, I practice what I preach. Like Haley's here. Haley's my girlfriend. She's gonna start helping out a lot more with like Prospero formally because like we're about to move into an apartment that Prospero is gonna pay for. And like partly I was like, okay, like at this price, like you do need to help out, like in a more formal way. Like, and that's the solution of how we can budget for this because we were basically gonna budget for this by you doing work for the company, right? And like I was talking to the main person, like doing my round with me and like bringing it up to him. And he was like, well, like you understand these things can go wrong, like with like dating someone. And I'm just like, absolutely, I understand that. Like, I understand the risk, but like, like what I said was like, I'm not asking you to bet on Haley and I's relationship for like the next 50 years, like, which is just like, I understand objectively hard to do. Like, we are betting on it for a year. B, Haley's helping us out anyway. And legally, we have exposure to like having someone helping out. And like, the less formalized that contract is, like the more risk we actually expose ourselves to. And like, see, like I actually think Haley is going to do like really amazing work. But like, I think that that's just like when I talk about like the problems of the government and the problems of like anything and like what I consider to be like, you know, being a good, accountable, responsible person, which if you're any kind of leader, you should care about being a good, accountable, responsible person. And like, to me, that's saying like, yeah, I totally get your apprehension with this idea I'm pitching you, but this is how I think about this. This is how I wrap my own head around these risks. And I just think it's like anytime I hear that, I think two things. I'm just like, actually, you probably, if you're just gonna go like deny, like you probably are actually corrupt. Like, and B, like if you can't even like take accountability for like what objectionably should be like discomfort that other people have, like you you're not a good leader. And like you're not a good leader as like a judge in our highest court in the country, and that's pretty lame.
Yeah, well, before we get into our model portfolio, or as we spin into it, this what you're talking about works perfectly with our last little tidbit for today. It's a bit of macro news where the looks like we're going to avoid a government shutdown upcoming because a $1.59 trillion spending deal was just reached over the weekend. So government's funding for a bit longer and avoid the chaos with a shutdown would bring.
It's kind of funny how like predictable the government can be. Like I actually met a really I went to like a talk and I met a really interesting person with a cool name. Her name was Storm. And she actually worked in lobbying and now actually is like does like tax consultant and like just kind of reports on the government. And she called this like to a T. Like basically like exactly how this was gonna go down and like it would go over into the new year and they would like figure it out. Actually, she said like almost to a T. She was like they might have like an extension and then like pass it towards the end. Um, but for those that don't know, so this is just like this is the same par for the course. Like the government, they want to like jostle, but anything like involving like a shutdown, like they don't mind being like pretty embarrassing. But there seems to be a limit of like just how embarrassed they're willing to let themselves get, both political parties. And as much as I rag on the government, I do commend them for that. There are like enough adults in the room that it's like, by the way, they're not all adults on both sides, but there are enough adults in the room that they're just like, look, guys, this makes us look bad. Can we just like get this law passed so we don't look like complete idiots? Um, so like I give them that credit, um, that they're not complete idiots. And they do care about like what we think a little. Um, but yeah, I think that it's just like one of those things that like there is a big tax policy. Like for those that don't know, like there is a big cliff that if we don't solve the tax policy, I believe in the next year, like basically our tax code just like completely falls apart. Like I could get into like a lot of the specifics, especially if people have specific questions. We'll address them next week. Um, because generally, like, I dig into financial policy just because, like, I want to know what's happening on Wall Street. So like I dig into that, but I generally don't dig into anything else because I call like much like I think the news, like I kind of call like a lot of like research just like a pit of despair. Like, so I will dig in if necessary, but I generally think like things like the tax code is a pit of despair. And it's like I want to know enough to like know, like not be stupid and not be uninformed. But the more I ever dig into that, the more like it's that pit of despair. And I do also think like that's the way I feel about current events. Um, which is just like I don't like people that are just like, well, I don't want to think about genocide. I don't want to even talk about it, like fingers and ears kind of thing. Like I'm the kind of person where it's just like, no, like things like genocide, we have to talk about. Because I think if we don't, we're not like looking at the problem hard enough to like be responsible citizens that want to fix problems like that. And it's like, if you don't look at them, I don't think you're honoring the situation enough. But like, I also think that there's a limit. There's some people that just like seem to love to be in the pit of despair, and like I'm actually even talking about some of the things that are going on like right now where people are just like constantly talking about it and like constantly. And I think like, Haley is a reporter for the Post and she talks to me about like some of these protests. And one of the things I just hate is like there's these like professional protest groups that basically just like round people up for like whatever protest is going on. And there's people that just like protest whatever, and whenever there's a protest, they'll just go to it. And that's like I think one of the many problems with going on right now, that it's just like some of this stuff that like whatever's being protested, people with just like general frustrations are just like amplifying problems and not getting us to solutions, which was always my big like critique of Occupy Wall Street, which is like, yeah, I love all of the things that they're shining a light on, but they literally have no solutions. And their solutions include like, basically like stuff that they're never going to get. And it's just like solutions aren't solutions if it's stuff that you're never going to get. And like that's the best problem. Like that's like my general problem with like all of these like solutions. Like, and I think that that's just like something that I think people need to be like, more cognizant of. Like, I would love, like, if you are passionate about something, like figuring out how, like, whatever you're protesting has more solutions and is not just like complaining. Cause, like, I feel like we see a lot of complaining and not a lot of like viable solutions ever presented. And it's just like, also just like complaining is just like without solutions. Like people are just like people even bring up like say like the Vietnam War and like the effectiveness of protests there. And while I totally agree that that worked then, we were talking about a government that actually was like much more effective even back then. Like I think the government gets worse and worse every year. And you are downright crazy to think just like complaining at this point on the other side, you're going to get a viable government solution, um, because you're not. Like, so it's just like, I think being solutions oriented is actually talking about like viable solutions and presenting viable solutions. Like, if you're going to do that. And like, I would say, like, even beyond like what we're talking about in terms of just like, I see a lot of complaining and never a lot of viable solutions. Even beyond that, I would say there is an education problem in like a lot of these protests where I would say a lot of people don't even understand the problem they're protesting well enough to present a viable solution. And I think that that is a way bigger problem than like even the fact that people are just complaining about something. Is the fact that people are often complaining about something that they just don't even bother to educate themselves on potential solutions on well enough to even come up with anything remotely viable.
Yep, there's a lot of dirty stuff happening in the world, but Prospero is here to fix it. And we are going to spin into the model portfolio update. George, do you want me to get signal photos for the stuff like longs and shorts you sent out yesterday? Or no?
No, I think we're gonna do I think we're actually going to try something new um, today. This didn't actually work last time, um, but let's see. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and actually, what do I want to do here? I'm just gonna start sharing, so I'm not because like most of the things there's overlap, but actually, if you could just what I'm going to do. Sorry, I'm figuring this stuff out. I'm trying to figure out if I want to like look at it here or I just want to like pull it up in the app. But I think I do just want to um pull it up in the app. And I might want to figure out ways. Are we able to share a phone screen? Um, see
Um, I'm not
on this.
sure. Let me see.
See if
We
you
might
can
have to get
join
a
on your.
StreamYard app.
Yeah. I think yeah. Forget that. I think I would have to like join a meeting. Um, and forget that. Okay. So I think what we're just gonna do is we're just gonna do our like traditional update where we look at like the technicals and we look at but pull up a list actually pull up a list of like our newsletter stocks because I actually do want to either I want to make sure that there's parity like and I think this is what I was like kind of talking through. I want to make sure there's parity in our newsletter picks and our model portfolio. So basically, like pull together a list of what's in our newsletter picks, and I'm either gonna by the end of this add them to the model portfolio or drop them. I think that that's the best way to handle this. Um,
So the newsletter picks the longs and shorts you sent out yesterday, right? Listed both
yes,
of. Okay.
and I think that that's the best way to handle. Um, because I think like that's my biggest issue is sometimes I'm just like, oh, like I like this review that I do where I review the technicals. I actually really like it, but I'm just like, oh, there's stuff in like the newsletter picks that are not yet in the model portfolio, and I think I just need to make sure that that loop is closed. I always okay. ODFL. Oh wow, I didn't even realize how well QQQ was doing today. Still not great on the 4 hour. Killing it on the 1 hour. How's SPY doing? How's IWM? That's looking really nice. Yeah, I mean QQQ, we did a great like our net option sentiment was way ahead of the market again. We did great with net option sentiment on QQQ. So that was a job well done. If anything, we didn't trust that turnaround well enough, but like we tend to be very conservative with the newsletter picks. But let's jump in. Let's look at Old Dominion Freight Line. I think which will probably drop. Well, we see a really nice uptrend there. How about the 30-minute? That's a really nice uptrend. We're gonna hold it for now. I think we're probably gonna like we probably want to add longs based on what we just saw and maybe drop shorts. Let's see. No, we're gonna drop TGRP. I don't like what's going on with it. And we want to be more selective. The Giants won another terrible game yesterday, Steven. I just hate that. I don't think I can watch the Giants next year. I just like I'm so frustrated with them.
Yep. Our draft spot is dwindling.
Well, it's just like they beat Washington like they're like wins this year. They beat Washington twice, and then they beat And then they beat the Patriots. They basically just beat the teams ahead of them in the draft, which is just like you want to talk about literally like useless moral victories, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's just dumb to like uh take any like solace or honor. Like John Mara is like a jackass. Like there is just like no other way to explain what's going on than that. He's just like a complete like garbage can destroying like absolute complete jackass. Like it's just like, can you tell me what VRTX is if we're up or down in it in the model portfolio? Um,
Is that a long or a short?
long. You think, Steven? You're
Yeah.
slow. Do you know how to search for a ticker? No, maybe.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm trying to pull it up. My computer gets so like overwhelmed it seems when I'm live streaming now.
Oh,
I gotta
we're a win
get
in this. Yeah,
this on my
we're
phone.
gonna get out of Vertex too. But I think we're gonna add a bunch of like
I got it.
no, you already like you're behind. It's done already.
0.79%.
No, we're up point 0.3
Oh.
is the headline. Don't worry about it. You just gotta get faster. You just gotta have the model portfolio pulled up. Um, don't worry.
No,
You'll
it's pulled up. My computer is just like while I'm live streaming, it's not functioning right. It's taking so long to load stuff.
what's wrong with your computer, Steven?
I think it's just old. I got this like I don't know if it's just old or I don't know. I'll try to figure it out. I did
I can
download
buy you a new computer, but you're gonna have to just look at porn on your old computer, Steven.
I did download this sheets on my phone, but I don't know if I could look up individual stocks on there. It would make it much easier if I could do it on my phone.
SNA is a hold. What's going on with AMN? Healthcare isn't a real holding that. Oh, I already see. Those are some high quotes on those shorts, but I think I'm just going to mainly look to add longs. What's going on? Those are some very high net option sentiment numbers on these. Okay, we're definitely dropping that, which is good because I wanted some shorts to drop. What's going on with GLPG? I would love to drop Galapagos, to be honest. We're dropping that. Oh, nice. We're getting some good drops here. INSG, even though that's down on net option sentiment. Let's see what's going on. Mm. Oh, damn. 'Cause I 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 'Cause That's a hard one because it's trending. Can you talk to me about INSG's net option sentiment? No, we just want to drop it. Like we want to drop some of these shorts. It's down, but I don't like that trend. Hmm, what's going on with Russia? Oh, Russia is a win. I love getting out of these. Like I love getting out of things quickly with a win, especially on the short side. That's how we make a lot of our profits. What about milestone? That's been flipping on us a bit. Hmm. Nope, flipping on us, but doing well still. CODX going the other way on us. How are we doing on CODX? Also a win.
I'm gonna be in the city tomorrow, George.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Like, by the way, like we can start like when we move into this new apartment, we have a really good like part of it is like this shooting location is going to be really good. So you can start joining me for the live stream. There's like a gym and a pool and everything. Like, could be it's a real office upgrade for Steven too.
Yeah.
And there's like common areas, so you don't even have to hang out with me the whole time. You want to comment on that, Steven?
Oh, you're not gonna get me to be able to leave your side. I'm gonna be right next to you the whole time. I don't need the common area.
That's the well, I might need it based on what you just said. Okay. I actually want to look now. I'm looking at some next stuff, which is I want to check out. I want to check out our real estate exposure because, like, I like depending on our real estate exposure, I might drop DRH. Um, what? Oh, period. Okay, so you're actually going to see my little trick here. Oh, what's going on? I hate when that happens. Um, a little of my Excel wizardry. Oops. What we do is that, and then we do data, remove duplicates. So then we have all of our sectors, and then we want to do account if. Check here. We're going to build it backwards. We're going to use this. I'm just checking. I'm getting like a count. Oh yeah, we have 10 real estate stocks. No problem. Dropping DRH now. Now let's look. Cam is fine. DRH we're dropping. We want to now. I'm just like looking for other financial services. Now I'm looking at BCH too. Banco de Chile. No, we definitely want to keep that. Where are all these financial services stocks? Oh, FRHC. Don't mind that at all. Um, Navi. Don't mind that. ARCC. Don't mind that. Don't mind that. Yeah, that's everything. We're dropping KRG. Lumen is fine. Oh, let's look at NHI. Oh, all right. Yeah, NHI, we're getting out of too. See, this is good to check. Getting some nice drops here. I'm feeling really good about this. Um, Now we know our target area. FFHI, FFIN is just way too low. Like FMC is basic materials? I didn't know that. Huh. Healthcare, consumer sector, conductor, WPC. I mean, looking at real estate, we can take a look at WPC too, unless we have anything higher. No, we'll hold AVR. We're gonna do one more little trick here. Okay. We looked at BCH. Yeah, we'll look at. Oh, we have FIBK twice. We're getting out of that. FIBK is in there twice. Check out the net option sentiment trend on FIBK if you don't mind. Because, like, honestly, we don't necessarily need all of this. No, we're fine on FIBK. Actually, forget that. But we definitely want to look at real estate. NHI, KRG, DRH, we're dropping that. Okay, let's look at two. Oh, yeah, we definitely want to drop two. Yeah, oh yeah, we're good. See? Looks like we're saving ourselves a lot of headaches here, Steven. Okay, let's see. Do we like our exposure on the rest? We like that consumer cyclical exposure. We like all this, no other problems. Um, Actually, what is consumer cyclical? Um, we're doing everything today. This is a great marathon one. I like these Monday marathon ones. Um, a bit of a recovery on consumer discretionary, I think. Because, like, let's go and look in the 1 day 2.56. So yeah, we've got enough of a recovery that I actually want to now take a look at what we have. Consumer discretionary. I'm not sure I want that much. And basically, like, what I'm doing here is something that, like, you can do in your own portfolio, which is just basically like, okay, now I'm like reevaluating, like, based on where everything's at, like, in net option sentiment, like what I may or may not want to drop. And now I might want to be like, maybe I'm changing my mind about iRobot now. I'll take a look at the 30 minute, now the 15. No, I'm not changing my mind about it. But I am pulling up, Stephen, we can look at iRobot together in Prospero because I want to look at the trend on net option sentiment now. Like, now I'm very curious about it. Um, yeah, it opened at 50, or I know it opened at, yeah, it's at 50 now. It opened at 50. It is trending down a little bit. An downside breakout is trending back up. I'm gonna just bold this because, like, I don't know if I want to get out of iRobot, but I am definitely a little nervous about it. Where did the model portfolio go? Did I get out of? I don't know what I did. Don't know what I did. Don't care. Um, we're just gonna check on a few more of those. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I think we might want to take profit on Zooms. Zoomias. We have a nice profit there. Let's just take profit. Let's get out. This is an epic cut of shorts that we're doing here. Um, but I feel very good about it. Um, PZZA. Let's take a look at PZZA. Do you want to just do me a favor and bold? Oh yeah, look at Papa John's here. I like losing that. I definitely, let's see, 15 minutes, but yeah, I'm gonna bold. I want to bold these two, and I'm gonna keep my eye on them. We can unbold this because it's getting dropped. Oh, we already had that bold. Look, we've had our
I
eye on
just
it.
did it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and bold, bold, the other one I said.
Zooms.
That's up here. No, we're dropping zooms. Bold, oh no, just PZZA. Let's take a look at lazy actually, because lazy is, oh, we're looking at everything. Like, why not? And it's always good to look at these charts together. And like, I'm looking across sector, and when I look across sector, it's pretty easy to see like what is maybe like performing better than others. Um, bold lazy too. We're gonna keep our eye on it. It's not as conclusive as the other ones. Um, all right. We're finally through our current portfolio. Boy, was that a journey. Um, all right. What are we gonna call this? And like,
Spring pleading came early. No more bearish picks.
well, we had more bears than bulls, to be clear. So like, it's like kind of just like I would say we got over defensive, and now we're gonna correct back in the other way, and I'll say that. All right, we're doing that. Um, Stephen, just get ready with like your QQQ and your SPY view.
Got it.
Um, mm, what do we want to do? Do we want to do downside breakout, or I think I want to do dark pool? But I think I'm gonna do something new here and do short pressure lessons. A new little wrinkle. Oh, I hate making this taller. Yeah, there we go. Least thing to do. Okay, so we've got that. I think we might actually. Right, first things first, we're gonna beat this. And then I think we want to add 5 of these. And I have to remember, today to like pull down those pluses and minuses. All right, we've got that. All right, so we've got 18, and then I think we have 17 here, but 16, but I don't think we'll necessarily use all of it. But actually, let's see if we can fit all of this. No, we can't. So I believe we're gonna end up cutting some of the shorts, but we'll see. All right, pulling this up. I kind of want to do dark pool at a 50% weight, but because I hate putting that as much as the rest. Then we're definitely all right. Whatever. We're definitely going on to 3-1. lines then, but whatever. I want to I want to get it right. And now we can go back to 12. We lose that line though, Steven. I hate that. All right, we're moving on with our lives. And I do that. I'm 2x weighting on net option sentiment, and I'm 50% weighting it because, like, basically, I want net option sentiment to be weighted more than these other things, and I want dark pool to be rated less. So that's just like a quick and dirty way to do it, um, where I just like do some debate. Um, and I kind of want to weigh social sentiment less too, but I won't do that today because I'm trying to finish this before a 1 p.m. meeting that I um Oh, Steven, did you ever see, like, I don't think you did the thing that I asked you, where I asked you to find out what we had in the newsletter and not the model portfolio.
Yeah, I think I have the list. You want me to? I got the photos for you in the Google Docs. You want me to just send it to you?
I mean, you can just tell me what's not in the model portfolio that's in the newsletter. You can just tell me the stocks.
Oh, you wanted me to check in the. Oh, okay. I didn't do that. Let me do that right now.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Check the shorts. I'm more interested in the shorts actually, because I think the longs I have. Oh, I'll do both. I won't be done with this
Okay.
by the time you've done yours. Just getting rid of these because I know they're already in there, and I kind of want to. Ooh, AMD is kind of new. I bet that's interesting. But we also have Broadcom in there. I don't think Broadcom is active. Oh, Mara. I don't really like thing like these. Like, but just like look. I'm actually not super comfortable with this. But it's just one stock. I have to like. It's just one stock in a large portfolio. This is a tough one. Wow. Bitcoin is just so volatile. I'm gonna take the risk. Um, what's going on with Apple? We were just ragging on it. Is it doing well today? Oh, look at you go, Apple. Or are you on the 2 hour? Yeah, we're gonna add you. But I don't think Broadcom's active. I'm just gonna check that on my own. All right. AutoZone's active. What's going on with that? You're gonna burn me again. I think going this at 19. All right, let's do numbers. I know PayPal's active right now. I think we have PayPal. I think we have 19. T-Mobile is something we want to look at. That's a nice diversification. I'm probably going to add that. I like that long. We messed this up. It's okay. Do we want to add a second SMCI? Sorry, I'm going to look at the trend on SMCI. Well, look at the column. All right, I think we got this right finally. A lot of slicing and dicing here. All right, so we want Meta, we want Broadcom. I don't think I want AMD too. I think that's too much tech exposure. We're gonna do Apple. We're gonna do Meta. Check on now.
All right, I have the stocks that aren't in it whenever you're ready.
I think we just dropped OLED. What can you look up what OLED does? And also, I think we're gonna want this.
Developer and manufacturer of organic light emitting diodes technologies.
Oh, I like that as a diversification. Here we go. Let's look at OLED. I think we had it and we dropped it. Oh, what's going on with you, OLED? Interesting. Let's see on the 30. Yeah, okay. Look at us go. And we don't have CI, right?
You do in the model portfolio.
Okay. One is good enough. Hilton. We don't want Hilton. Train Technologies. What does Train Technologies do? No, I don't. I'm not excited enough about Train. Maybe. We're just gonna do it together. We're just gonna cut to the chase on Train Technologies and see what their PE ratio is. What? Oh, that's annoying. We're gonna roll the dice on Train. Asbury Automotive. We probably aren't gonna have this. No, not in a million years. We're probably gonna add this. Oh, I didn't know. I thought this was gonna be T-Mobile. Thermo Fisher Scientific Health Technology. Yeah, we will. We're in. And Paycom. Wow, I think this is our biggest ever like bull ad. We'll add some bears too, I think. Uh, are we gonna pick Cracker Barrel for another ride? I'm also ready for you to tell me whenever you're
Those
ready.
companies.
Yeah.
So the stocks that are in the Newsletter picks, but not the model portfolio. Long is TDW, and short is VSH and NL. The other ones were in it.
Long is TDW and short is one more time.
VSH and NL.
I don't think. Can we keep this pace? This is just like such a torrid pace for. I just don't know what are we adding here. I think Broadcom is what we want. Yeah, we're gonna add Broadcom as a newsletter pick, and that's how we're gonna hold. But we're not gonna add VSH as a short. What's the other NL?
Yep, NL.
Let me look at VSH. Oh man, we're really running out of time. It's curving up. No, we said we were gonna do it. We're sticking to our word. Boy, I think this is the biggest update we've ever done. No. 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 Oh, this could be interesting. Yeah. Am I going to take Wish for another ride? Don't think so. Maybe. Yeah, we're adding a lot of stuff. We do want to hedge with Wish. I think this is a real estate, in which case we are adding, or we've been dropping too much. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Solar. I don't think I want to touch solar. Oh, interesting. Maybe I do want to touch solar. Can you talk to me about the trend on MAXN and net option sentiment?
Trend in net option sentiment is down. It is at 55 right 54 right now, opened up at 55, but it's a downward trend.
Let's roll the dice, right? Here we go. Oh, I want to drop one of our QQQs too. Let's check. I want to see how many QQQs do we have. All right, so we have 3 IWNs and I believe 2 QQQs. Yeah, I just don't like. I just want to be in less. I want less index exposure. This is one hell of an update. I hope any of like the shorts I exited didn't go the other way on me. I would be pissed. But whatever. Like Nova is too green. WD. I should really like. They're not entering WD. We want to send this out right at 1 p.m. to like make our lives easier. So what that means for our lucky watchers is like the last 7 minutes. If you guys have any stocks to call out, we will. Ooh, Macy's. I like that 30-minute trend. Talk to me about Macy's. On that option sentiment.
Macy's net option sentiment is at 34. It's going down, opened at 43. Downside breakout 67, upside 25.
Sorry, one more time.
Net option sentiment, downward trend. It opened at 34. No, sorry. It opened at 43. It's at 34 now. And downside breakout is 67. Upside is 25.
Yeah, I like that. So what I would add is that like yeah, it's definitely on this good downward trend. 43 down to 34. I like that. And it's like hitting its like couple week low, so I definitely like what we're seeing there. So I'm going to add that as a bear. And do we have anyone in the live stream? I might just do oh, no, we're still gonna do our market update. And I'll just like kind of give that live. Oh no, we have to do. Got some work to do here, George. Don't get ahead of yourself. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to do our like. We're doing our hacky thing now. We're cutting rows that aren't gonna make it in the picture. Sorry. This is not really our preferred way of doing things, but
Jonathan is asking why you decided to go 2x on Meta.
I mean, it's just like by far our like the top rated stock, and like that's what I'm trying to like. Basically, like I wanted to be. There were 4 shorts that I liked, and so I wanted to have 5 longs, and like it was just kind of process of elimination where I wanted 5 longs and 4 shorts, but there weren't really 5 longs that I loved. Like, oh, I'm not sharing. I thought, oh, wait. Am I? I'm presenting, right? You can see my screen?
Yeah, I see Google open.
Yeah, okay. Um, I'm going to show you the newsletter in a second and like what I was looking at. Okay, so let me just do this market update. And then I'll get to your. I think I have plenty of time to get to your question before I'm done. All right, yeah, QQQ is on a really nice upswing. Yeah, I'm even just going to take a picture of this. All right, we have that. Now, like, I'll take a look. I'll show you what I was looking at yesterday, Jonathan. So, like, yeah, when I was looking at this, I was just basically like, I don't like booking because it's consumer cyclical, right? I actually didn't like the technicals on FICO yesterday, and like you can actually see, like we have it here, like it looks better now, but like when I was looking at like the 3 hour on it, like it was still pretty red. 4 hour, like yeah, you see, like it was not necessarily going in a good direction over the weekend. So I'm even just like going down the list, like Molina ruled out because we had Cigna, SIAA, like I didn't really like I actually preferred these technicals, TDG. TDW was like kind of the only energy stock, but like as I went down, I didn't like these financial services. Google with bad technicals, these with bad technicals. So it was kind of like these were the only four longs that I liked. And I was like, okay, with like meta far and away above, like why I really prefer that. Does that answer your question? I'm about to get out of here. Boy, this was a marathon live stream. Uh I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Um it's nice for me to be able to get my work done and also get some good footage for you guys. We're sending that out. I have another meeting to jump to.
George is gone, guys. Glad that helped you, Jonathan. We'll be back closing the markets on Wednesday, so we'll see everybody there. Thanks for tuning in today. Marathon stream. Bye, everyone.